Welcome back to HBCU Pulse Radio. Randall Barnes here, and we're talking about what's occurring at Tennessee State University and the state of Tennessee. I have Charles Galbreath Jr. He is the Tennessee State University National Alumni Association president, and he's also a great friend of HBCU Pulse and the program. Charles, how you doing today, man?
Randall, I'm good. I appreciate you having me on again, and I appreciate all that you're doing for TSU. Just getting the word out there, that means a lot. So I thank you on behalf of all TSU Tigers.
I definitely appreciate it. Love Tennessee State, and I wish we were here talking about something different. Maybe spring football, maybe what's going on in the spring, what's going on in the fall. But we're here talking about something serious as we've seen the Board of Trustees be vacated at Tennessee State. So before we get to that specific portion of the conversation, I want to start from the beginning, because we first did an interview in December 2022, actually a month before we got on SiriusXM, about what was going on with Tennessee State at that time, because Tennessee Senator Todd Gardenhire had some remarks to Dr. Glover about the enrollment growth at Tennessee State. And you actually said something very interesting at that time. You said, it's so important for us to remember that simple times that people's, I'm just read that again, I said times. It's so important for us to remember that simple things that people say lead to mentalities. And when we're just in conversations, we can change our mentality. We can question mentality. When those mentalities make their way into the mouths of our lawmakers, they become decisions that guide the future. And I thought that for this conversation, that's a really important quote. So can you reflect on how the comments from Senator Todd Gardenhire informed the discourse and the conversation around Tennessee State University that we're really having today?
Absolutely. So as the National Alumni Association president, first of all, my job at all times is to promote the image and the excellence of Tennessee State University. And so when anyone and anything attacks that legacy and that image, it's important for alums, and especially myself, to speak up in those times. And so over the last year, we've been under a series of attacks. Again, many of you, if you've been following the stories, you know that there are areas that the university could have met the challenges with greater strength. But of course, when we look at areas of funding, of course, when we look at some of the issues of HBCUs across the country, it's hard to meet some of the criteria that they're expected to meet due to lack of resources. And so when we look at it, a lot of times when we can't pinpoint what an attack is, we start making statements. This becomes something that becomes a backroom conversation for some of our legislators, and those conversations end up in the public. So I think that in that situation, it was a situation where there was some frustration that some legislators had with the way that Tennessee State University was managed in their eyes. And that frustration leaked out into the public. And when that happens, it's very offensive. It's very offensive to TSU. It's very offensive to Dr. Glover, and it's very offensive to alumni. And so what you've seen many voices that speak against that and are willing to stand up and say, hey, that's not the TSU we know about. That's not the TSU that we represent. And it's not the TSU that we're going to allow people to paint a picture that TSU is that way.
So when it comes to the whole entire situation with the Board of Trustees, so the Board of Trustees has been vacated, and it passed through very quickly. So on last Thursday, Governor Bill Lee signed the bill, and then he appointed new members of the Board of Trustees that are all Tennessee State University alumni. So I want to just, talk to you about this as the Alumni Association president. Like, what's the immediate reaction from the alumni community to this decision?
Yeah, there's as many diverse alumni as we have. That's as many opinions and emotions are flying around without this. And let me tell you, as the national president, it's very hard in this moment because I represent the alumni body that has so many different feelings and opinions about this. So I can share, first of all, that there are some split reactions to that. First of all, there are alumni who were active alumni and beloved alumni on the former board, the board that was vacated. So we have that moment where there are alums who want to, of course, defend and protect and celebrate the past board. And then within a day, we have a new board of alums that people also appreciate and celebrate and are proud of and believe in. So it was a very split emotion day, mixed emotion day. I think that some people feel like that was very quick to have those individuals ready. It's kind of like, dude, you didn't even let the ink dry from the vacate, and now you have new ones. But again, I've worked with many of the new board members, and I think that alumni trust in the new board members. But I think that there are still some members that are wanting to defend and speak up for the past board as well.
So those 8 new members, so we know that it's a 10-member board. So you have the 8 members that are appointed by the governor. Then you have the student trustee, and also you have the faculty trustee, right? So these 8 new members, like you said, they're all alumni of Tennessee State, and they were appointed to the board by Governor Bill Lee. So how is this choice itself resonating with the alumni community of these specific members of the board? Because you said you've worked with them, like they're great folks and everything like that. So how is the choice of the specific members of the board resonating with the alumni?
Yeah, they're business leaders. They are in their own rights. I've seen their passion for Tennessee State University outside of their roles that they've now been appointed to. They have been voices for Tennessee State University. So I can tell you that the new board members are trusted within the TSU community. I can tell you that the work that they've done for years has been respected and valued within the Tennessee State University. Several of them I served on with the foundation board. I'm a member of the TSU foundation board. And so some of those individuals actually have served alongside with. And again, I've seen their vision, I've seen their work ethic and their dedication. So I am confident, as well as a large amount of the alumni body, when their bios were presented, when just their pictures were presented, they represent a diverse age group. Several of them are younger than what we've seen from trustee board members. We have a lot of wisdom on there that we've seen in other spaces. So I think that the diversity of the board, but I think that the fact that we've worked with these people before in different spaces gives us a lot of confidence.
So given the significant overhaul of the Board of Trustees, what are the next steps that the Alumni Association envisions to preserve and enhance the legacy of Tennessee State? Because right now, like, Tennessee State is in a very important point in the history, because you have Dr. Glenda Glover, who's an amazing president that's about to retire. And now it's a new president search. Finalists have been named. So like, what do you envision to preserve and protect the legacy of the institution with this new Board of Trustees?
Let me first, with that question, salute Dr. Glenda Glover. Dr. Glover is the 8th president of Tennessee State University, but more importantly, she is an alumnus of Tennessee State University. And Tennessee State University has gone into spaces and sat at tables and been a part of conversations that will change history, not just the immediate history, but for many years to come. And that was led by Dr. Glover. Dr. Glover has been through a lot of challenges as the president based upon many of the things that we're discussing, but also based upon the fact she is a leader of a historically Black university that comes with its own amount of challenges. Tennessee's only public funded HBCU, and that comes with a lot of challenges. And so I could not mention what alumni can do without first saluting Dr. Glover as one of our alumni sisters for the work that she has done as she is moving into retirement. It's up to us as alumni to be very much so at the table. Dr. Glover has set that precedent. Dr. Glover has been to the White House multiple times. She has used her voice and her platform to connect with White House initiatives, with HBCU initiatives. What people must know is that on the subject of HBCUs, Tennessee State University has been front and center at the table. It's up to us as alumni to remain at the table. And so the way that we're going to have to do that is we're going to have to read about these bills. We're going to have to read about what our HBCUs need from a higher education standpoint. That's one of the ways that a lot of leaders, when it comes to the HBCU side of alumni, we're so emotional, we're so passionate in a beautiful way. We fall into the beautiful aspects of homecoming. We fall into the beautiful aspects of what it means to say, I just love my HBCU, but there's business. Some similar to what James Brown said, you can't have the show without the business. And a lot of times in the HBCU circles, we get so enthralled with the show that we forget about the business. So alumni, we're going to have to reach out to our line brothers and our line sisters, and we're going to have to really come forward as a force and understand what we're up against.
So what does collaboration specifically with this new board look like? Because they are coming in, it is new. And like I said, this is a very important point in the history of Tennessee State with this president search. So what does collaboration with the new Board of Trustees look like?
Yeah. And first of all, they are involved alumni already. So that it's one thing to be alum. It's another thing to be an involved alum. One thing I can say about the new board members, they're involved alum. And so I believe that their involvement will continue. The conversations and the dialogue that they are used to having will continue. And I think that that's where it starts. It starts with having open dialogue where alumni feel like they can speak to the Board of Trustees, where they feel like if there's something that we don't as alumni understand about the status of our university, they're willing to explain it to us and help us understand and share what they need from us. Giving is one thing. I know that alumni giving at most HBCUs is below what it should be. And so one area, of course, is giving so that we can make sure that that Board of Trustees has funds to manage and that the university has additional funds to manage that supplement the funds that come from the state. But also just, when we need rallies, when we need to show up at the Capitol and show our support for Tennessee State University, we need to be able to know what the needs are directly from the horse's mouth, directly from the Board of Trustees. And I think that collaboration looks like us having more conversations, less we find out about it later, less we are causing trouble if we're asking questions, and more we're at the table the whole time.
So when it comes to being at the table, like students make the whole entire HBCU ecosystem go around. And as someone that I can't say this for too long, like I was only in school 5 years ago, like 2019, I graduated in 2019. I can't say that too much because I'm pushing 30, so I can't say that too much longer.
Right.
But I understand that level of advocacy as a student and especially as a student leader. So in these moments across the nation, and especially at Tennessee State, you have students that are on the front line that are not just elected student leaders or even appointed student leaders. They also just are the quote unquote regular everyday student that are protesting, that are standing up, that are making their voices heard on social media, on the yard, in the streets. So I want to know, like, what is the responsibility of these students that want to protect and preserve the legacy of Tennessee State?
Yeah, I'm so proud of our student leaders at Tennessee State University. They have stepped up to the plate, a plate that sometimes I don't feel like they should have to, but they stepped up to it and they do it with such excellence. And every time I see them open their mouth, every time they step up to a podium, I'm so proud of how they represent the student body of Tennessee State University. I think that, it's always been said, Black and brown faces have built America. But I also would add to that, young people have been the lead of every movement of injustice that have pushed us past those movements, whether it be the civil rights movement, or if we even bring it all the way up to the Black Lives Matter movement, there have been young people who have been the voices. Unfortunately, when it comes to a university, it saddens me that our peer institutions, those student leaders, they get to worry about student issues and they get to go and they get to just have their student experience and college experience. And our students, particularly at Tennessee State University, they have to add being an activist. They have to add being an advocate. They have to add being a lobbyist for things that just should naturally be there for them, being that they enrolled in a state institution. And so for me, I think that that's very sad, that we overlook that sometimes, that our students have to be a part of a movement where there shouldn't even be a movement. If we are owed money, we should receive money. If we are supposed to be funded at a certain level, we should be funded at a certain level. If you find fault with something that the adults and that the administration are doing, it should stay with the administration. But unfortunately, all of those issues trickle down into the student body. And so they have a choice. And our students have always chosen to fight for TSU. So I love them for that. And I support them for that. I tell them that frequently. If you need me, if you need to talk, whatever they're going through, the alumni, we're going to be there for them. But again, it is unfortunate that we forget that their number one reason for being in school is to be educated.
And I think that that's just so important when it comes to my role in student leadership and what we do with HBCU Pulse. That is the duality that HBCU students have to deal with, because at other schools, you see students are involved in the political process in a different way. Yes. Like they're protesting, they're espousing their support in a different way that's in line with, hey, it's an election year. Hey, the political process. Hey, something that we don't rock with in our group. So we're going to advocate against that. But HBCU students are a part of a different type of process and a different type of fight that really starts when we're admitted and we step foot on that campus. As freshman orientation leaders, we tell the students that y'all got to stand up for your institution. I don't know if that is the same call to action that someone at the University of Tennessee has to have, or the same call to action that someone at the University of Georgia has to have. But at Fort Valley State University, at Tennessee State University, at these HBCUs, even as older student leaders, we tell our students that you have to fight. You got to make sure you stand up for your HBCU. Make sure you don't let anyone play with your HBCU. So I think that what you said was very powerful there. But I want to ask this, because now this is something that the HBCU community is very invested in, because you have Tennessee State's, the great, amazing history of Tennessee State, all the amazing graduates that Tennessee State has produced, both historically, but also recently, because I know some amazing folks that just walked across that stage that are from Tennessee State. So we are invested in Tennessee State as a national alumni base and even a national student base. So we want to know how we can help, but also let's talk about how the Tennessee State family can help and what's next and what's our call to action to make sure that Tennessee State preserves its legacy and its history.
Thank you. And I appreciate you and everyone who has asked questions about Tennessee State and who have reached out and offered their support, because we are in a crisis that does not belong to us solely. We're just the first. You know, I was always told sometimes as a leader, when you're the first through the door, you might be the one that gets shot. And so I feel like we are the first through the door in this situation. And so we're dealing with a lot of shots and we're taking them. But I think that the best way that we can help is to, first of all, understand what are the issues of HBCUs. And so when you're speaking of a university being underfunded, that means that in offices where they should be fully staffed, sometimes they're not fully staffed. That means the quality sometimes of staff and of administrators and or faculty that are hired based upon what you can pay in salary. Sometimes that suffers. When you're looking at scholarships that you're able to give, there's a lot of issues that come along with being an underfunded HBCU that we must understand how those issues trickle into customer service, trickle into how responsive a university is, that trickle into maybe what the relationship between the students and the faculty, or the parents and the faculty, or the administrators and the student. All of these things have an effect on the school. All of these funding issues have an effect on the school. And so I think that if we can understand that helps us speak more positively about our HBCUs. So many people, when I hear the difference between HBCUs and other universities, they talk about, the Black issues, or they may say some other things. And we're so discouraged and we're so negative about what we go through, but we forget that we're going through these things because of the lacks that we have. And so understanding the balance of, these are not awful people. These are not awful leaders. These are our leaders doing the best with what they have. These are students who have chosen, based upon legacy, based upon history, based upon wanting to be around people who look like them. They made a choice to go into an HBCU. And so it's up to us as a community to make sure that these HBCUs are still standing for these students to make these choices from years to come. So I say, call everybody your old roommates, your line brothers, your line sisters, people you were in class with, and talk about it. Talk about what's going on with your university. Make sure that you're giving. Create a scholarship in your friends group's name. Create a scholarship in your line's name. Create a scholarship in your family's name. Do something that shows your allegiance and support for HBCUs. If we show we love it, they will know someone loves it, and that will diminish how much they try to fight it.
And I think that's important because although we can't erase billions, even trillions of dollars in underfunding, because you have all of the HBCU land-grants, almost except for a couple of them, that are experiencing hundreds of millions of dollars that they're missing. And we knew this before the federal government and the Biden administration. We appreciate them for that. Released, what they released as far as the audit saying, hey, this is how much Tennessee State is owed. North Carolina A&T is owed. Fort Valley State is owed. So we knew that it was a problem. We can't fully just say, hey, here's money, we're going to fund it ourselves. Oprah can't do that. So it's like, it takes an effort to lobby the government, the state governments, to release that money and make sure they're supporting HBCUs. But like what you said, it's also on us with our positions, with our money. We used our degrees to uplift ourselves and uplift our families and uplift the legacies of our families. I think it's important that we use what we have to support our HBCUs, come back and pour into it. Because if we have enough alumni that are coming in and pouring into our HBCUs, and there are enough alumni around the nation that's coming in and pouring into Tennessee State and that Tennessee State community pouring into Tennessee State is going to be all right. And Tennessee State is going to always be all right, but it's going to be even better. And then once we get the money that we're owed, we cook it. It's going to be a different conversation. And I always say this, I know that with you as the Alumni Association president, everything will be all right. I know that.
I appreciate that. There's something that I use in my work. I'm in the field of juvenile justice and social work in my day job when I'm not representing the Alumni Association. And there's a theory called the broken window theory. And in the city, when you have a vacant building, the theory is we must show that we care about a space, because the moment that you take a rock and you break a window, what that does is that allows the next person to come behind you and throw a rock at another window. And that's how many times you see vacant buildings where a lot of the windows are broken out, because someone first threw a rock and broke a window, and that sent the message that we don't care about this space anymore. And so it made other people come behind and deface it as well. And so that's what my fear always is, when we don't have active voices, when we're not giving, when we're not showing our love and support for our HBCUs. My fear is that broken window theory comes up, that if we show that we don't care, that allows someone else in a place of power to say, well, it looks like they don't care that much, so I'm going to go ahead and throw my stone too. And so that's what we have to fight against.
I think that's so important. And I appreciate you for coming on. So before we go, when people hear this, when people see the coverage, they're going to want to reach out and see what they can do from the National Alumni Association president. So let everybody know where they can follow you on social media and where they can contact you.
Absolutely. So you can find me on social media. I am TSU Alumni Prez. Again, TSU Alumni PREZ. You can find me there. You can also look up the TSU Alumni Association at www.tsualumnionline.org. And that's another way that you can reach out to us and get involved. We have associate membership as well. So if you're wanting to be an associate member of the TSU Alumni Association, we welcome that as well. There's a huge fight ahead of us, and we need as many people as possible. I think that, again, kind of backtracking to the new board members, they will need us more than ever now, because when you give someone all Black, all alumni, in my brain, sometimes that says, let's see what you're going to do with it. And then if you make a mistake, you could say, well, we allowed an all Black, an all alumni board to manage Tennessee State University, so we may have to come in and do our part now. And so I just want us to know that we must help this new board succeed. We must help Tennessee State University succeed, and we must speak up against underfunding of HBCUs, because if it happens at TSU, I guarantee you it can happen anywhere. So we need everyone to understand the story, understand the fight, and stand in the collaboration.
I love it. Listen, Charles, thank you so much. You already know I'm gonna have you back here on HBCU Pulse Radio, and also, of course, HBCU Pulse is here fighting with Tennessee State because we love all HBCUs, but Tennessee State, just for all the support that you all have given to me and to HBCU Pulse, Tennessee State has a special place in my heart. So we're not gonna give up on the fight. Thank you so much for coming on, Charles Galbreath Jr., Tennessee State University National Alumni Association President. You're listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.